if you're 40 and you're still thinking you've got 10 years and you can still get pregnant, it's not that easy.
My husband made me keep my legs up in the air for like 24 hours.
Moms over 40, miracle or madness?
Find out why Kate Jackson, Ruth Pointer, and Adrienne Barbeau say it's a blessing at any age. On Caryl and Marilyn, ABC Daytime, next.
Doing it all, day after day, while every red hot mama's got something to say. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Well, it just might change your point of view. Tell me what you're
Good morning, everybody. Okay, you remember the news story? It was just a short while ago. It was a 63-year-old woman who allegedly lied about her age to a fertility specialist, and then she became the oldest woman to give birth to a healthy baby. Well, it raised a ton of eyebrows.
Yes, it did. You know, people were saying that she wouldn't live to see her child grow.
It was ridiculous.
And see her, how could she handle a toddler? And she'd be too tired. And think about nursing on a 63-year-old breast.
Well,
think about that. Well, everybody got all in a snit about it, didn't they?
And it bugged us.
Yeah.
It really did, because who raised questions when it happened to men? Like Anthony Quinn, who fathered a baby when he was almost 80. Strom Thurmond was almost 90, and just recently, here's the odd couple, Tony Randall and his wife, first baby at 77. Did anybody say anything? No.
So?
Okay, so we have an
age.
opinion about this.
Well, come on. You never know when you're going to die anyway, so the age factor has nothing to do with this, nothing. And now with the fertility drugs and modern medical advances, women can have babies, it says here, in all sorts of ways. That is so scary to me.
But anyway.
At all ages.
And we applaud
Oh,
it.
keep it
we
going,
actually
Carol,
do applaud
keep it going.
Oh, but you'll get to hear more of our opinion with our first three guests. They all made headlines when they became moms, too. Our first mom kissed the Swamp Thing on the big screen, and we all loved her in the hit sitcom Maude. And this may surprise you. She's 51 years old. She just gave birth to twin boys 10 weeks ago. Please welcome the fabulous Adrienne Barbeau. So we're a little opinionated about it all.
But it was my opinion.
Good.
So I'm glad you share. Will you hang on a second, because I'm so excited.
Oh, no, don't finish.
She's the eldest sister. She was a grandma who had her tubes tied. Now, I never thought about the Pointer sisters being a grandma and tying their tubes. See, that just wouldn't go there. Anyway, she decided to have some more babies. Now, like Adrienne, she's also the proud mom of twins. Please welcome Ruth Pointer. Ruth!
Welcome to the show.
Sorry, I massacred your
Present? Oh, yeah. Did we make these?
Look. No.
Little hanky
Oh, because you and I do it crap.
Little hanky
We did crafts on our show. We couldn't stop ourselves.
These are great.
Okay,
Thank
now it's time
you.
to bring out our third guest. This brave guest battled breast cancer and heart disease during her childbearing years, but she never gave up her dream of adopting a child. Rosie O'Donnell proved to be a real-life angel for this Charlie's Angel, and she was our favorite angel. Please welcome Kate Jackson. So great. Three great women. This is so cool. Isn't this good? It's a good thing. All those moms in the audience. Adrienne, how are you doing with those 10-week-olds?
I'm doing okay. I really am.
Now, is it boys and girls?
Identical boys.
Identical boys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So really, how's it going? Is it?
It's more time-consuming than I anticipated because I'm nursing and nursing
And nursing some more.
Well, that was my favorite part, though, in a certain way.
But you didn't nurse two at a time.
That's the thing.
You know, when they're both screaming at you.
And you know what? I was as big as you were, and I had to hold my breast up over the baby because if I let go, it oozed all over the baby, and it would go. I couldn't breathe. Yes.
Oh,
Do you have to do that? Do you have to?
They
they both sit there and hit each other in the face, you know.
You can't really nurse two at a time, can
Yeah, you can.
You can? Oh, look at...
There are times when you have to. Well, you know.
Yes, you
Do
can.
you? You too?
When they're both screaming, I mean, what are you going to do?
Oh, they have even a special pillow that you can get.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Which then holds you way up here, you know,
yeah.
so that you're...
Everybody's soft.
Now, I heard that you were surprised about all the press coverage.
I did,
You really were?
Yes. I was surprised at people's reaction. And the only way I can explain it is, I guess, when you're inside, you know, your own body, you don't think about...
sure.
I mean, I don't feel old, and I don't... What are we looking at? It really
Well, it is
did
such a
take me by
personal
surprise.
thing.
People keep saying, oh, you know, this is great and I admire you, and I keep thinking, but all I did was have babies. I mean, it's, you
People
know,
have been having babies for years.
yeah.
You feel the same way?
And it's not new. I mean, I think about Bible times. You know, Bible times come from a very religious family. And women had babies back in Bible times until they were very old.
Yeah, that's true.
Right,
They just had them as long as they could.
right.
You know, there was no age
Well, your
limit.
mom had 11, and she had
Her
Michelle
last
when...
at 45.
Well,
yeah.
really?
45,
And my father's wife, he married again, and she went in thinking she was going to have a tumor removed and found out she was pregnant.
Oh, my God.
Well, she was in menopause,
Wow.
you know. I
Right.
mean,
That can happen, see? How about you, Kate? You adopted your little one.
Yeah, I did.
And how old is he now?
He's 23 months.
Wow.
He is a little
Well, were you surprised at the press coverage? Because actually all of you got it.
Yeah, well, I sort of laid low. I don't think I left my house for 3 months, and, you know, took him only around in the stroller and the driveway, and then I was amazed. Like, the first day I went out, at the cameras and
Do you feel
stuff like
protective?
that.
in that
Oh,
way?
gosh,
You
yeah.
just really don't want
really?
people to
Oh,
see
yeah.
it.
No.
Yeah, I know. We struggle with that a little bit here, and then just gave it up. Well, my kids are like 23 and 24. I don't think they're gonna...
Yeah, right.
Nobody's going to hold them for ransom.
Actually, they can have them. Give them a job, something. Yeah.
Now, you actually have a son, a 13-year-old son.
I have a 13-year-old son who is in school.
Yeah, would they go to school
Yes.
together?
Yeah.
But we didn't know that really until about a week ago.
My husband said he saw you at open house. There's my 13-year-old son looking
Cody?
like a girl.
Well, now you,
They just-
so I want to know what it's like to have a 13-year-old and then have babies come into your life.
Well, I think I had forgotten how time-consuming it was. I think the real difference for me is not so much the difference in age, but the fact that I've got two instead of just one.
That's right.
really
Two
different.
is very different.
It's very different.
Oh, it is very
So
different.
that's really been the issue for you. It
Yes.
has nothing
Yeah.
to do with
Yeah.
having babies again. It's having two.
Two.
Yes, that's
Well,
much
no
more
kidding.
different.
I mean, I can't even imagine that because it was exhausting. I was
Yes.
22 when I had my first.
She
one.
was
I
a baby
I was a
herself.
baby
You
myself.
really were.
Yeah.
It is exhausting.
Well, you guys will stay with us?
Sure.
Okay. Because we'll be
Gonna
right
come
back.
back.
We'll get their story. We're going to find out exactly how Ruth got pregnant with her tooth side. And then how Rosie O'Donnell played the stork for Kate. Stay with us.
Oh, we're talking about being new moms at any age. And there's a certain age that women are supposed to stop having babies.
No.
You know, do you think that? Come on, I don't believe that at all.
Yes, you're supposed to get married at a young age. You're supposed to have kids, and then the marriage doesn't last, and then you meet the perfect mate, and then you decide that you want babies together. Well, that happened to two of our guests, actually.
You know?
Oh, we're making so light of all of this. But, you know, let's start with Kate, because we told everybody before we went to break about how you got your baby.
Yeah.
And what a sweetheart. I mean, you can just see your face lights up when you talk about
he's so
him.
wonderful.
But it was a process for you.
Yes, it
wasn't
was, yeah.
And how did Rosie help?
Rosie helped all along the way. She had recently adopted Parker, and he was a little tiny baby in what I thought was like a sling the first time I saw her. I've come to know it's a snuggly now. You know?
Yeah.
And she helped all along the way, and with helped along the lines. I mean, with the people that.
Now.
They kind of force you into that, don't they?
But he's
What's
just,
your favorite part, let's say, of a day with him?
I like it when he wakes up in the morning, actually, because I either hear Mama or I hear Mama. But either way, it's a great way to start the day.
It is a great way to start.
Yeah, and at night, you know, we get in bed and watch Winnie the Pooh together. And I like that too.
So he's almost 2, right? So
yeah.
is he doing that thing where he wants to share his food with you and stuff, and he shoves it in your mouth?
Oh,
You know
yes.
that? Yeah.
Oh, gosh,
After he's had it in his
Yeah,
mouth.
and it's all dripping and drooling, and then
And I just go, ooh, thank you. Yeah.
Ruth's nodding, no,
You gotta be
Such a
grateful.
cute little
Now, how old are
baby.
your twins, Ruth?
4. They'll be 4 in July.
4.
Yeah.
So you're almost out of the woods.
Almost.
Almost.
That's what I keep thinking, you know, but then something
Well,
new
that's
is
that
always
2 thing
developing
again.
with them.
Yeah.
She's going, what are you
Out of the
crazy?
woods.
Yeah, I
Well, how
know.
did you get pregnant since you had your tubes tied?
Well, thanks be to God for modern technology and medical science. They can bypass all of that and go straight into the uterus,
Boy, I didn't know that.
you know?
Wow. So they just
Straight on
became
in.
the tube for you?
Like the New Jersey
they go,
tubes.
they go-
It just became the tunnel for you?
I tried 3 times. The 3rd time was when it, you know, happened.
This was
But
with in vitro?
With in vitro. 2 times I tried my own eggs. My eggs were old and tired.
Yeah, I know about those old
I
eggs.
had old tired eggs, believe me. My eggs were tired. I was like, no, I don't
that
think this
body
is going
was
to
still
happen
going.
this time. So my husband and I thought about it and talked about it and decided to go with a donor. And we picked someone, did some research on finding someone that was as much to my physical likeness as possible. I said, she's got to be gorgeous. She's got to be black.
And she's got it. Did she have to sing?
She got to sing. I'm so excited. You know.
Yeah, oh, you should have
Let's line them up and audition.
I would have made her do jump.
Oh, yeah. That would have been great. But we picked, you know, someone. I've never met this person before. And, you know, they fertilized the egg with my husband's sperm and just pop it in the oven.
Yeah.
Yeah. My husband made me keep my legs up in the air for like 24 hours. Keep your knees up, honey. Keep your knees up. Come on, keep your knees up.
So what do you guys think about all this hoopla about, you know, women over 40 having babies? And does it send you through the roof like it does Marilyn and I?
Send us through the roof?
Well, it's just, I don't know. I just felt like, you know, I mean, I know people have the right to be judgmental because that's kind of what most of us all are.
Yes, yes.
But, you know, when you read some of the things, it's like like the woman who had the baby at 63, for example, has, you know, you come to find out as you read through all the, you know, the articles that have, she has this huge loving family, you know, and to me it was like that, what a lucky child to
Yes.
be born into this huge family that welcomes this baby. If
Yes.
a baby is wanted to me, then that baby deserves to be there,
Yes.
no matter what age.
I also think maybe on some metaphysical basis that soul maybe chooses that person to come into because they need to learn something from them. So I also feel like it's nobody else's business.
That's right.
You know, really, it's only our business if somebody hurts a child.
Yeah.
But it's not our business if they're loving a child.
it shouldn't.
We just say, great, good.
I think I'm more, I think if I had had children when I was 22, I mean, every moment is so precious and I'm so aware, more aware than I think I would have been had I been younger.
I think that's true.
Oh, it's
because
definitely-
having
I
done
have-
it younger, I
we
think I
have
never
older
thought about
children.
anything. It was just something that I just did.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I would say to anyone who is 40 and who is looking at, I mean, because now when you talk about all this media, people keep saying, oh, you know, this is this great thing you've done. I would never want to be an example for anyone because if you're 40 and you're still thinking you've got 10 years and you can still get pregnant, it's not that easy. You know
No,
what you
it's
went
not.
through.
No, it's
It's
not.
extremely difficult.
Well, and I think it's
Do it
not to
now.
negate, too, what the medical obstacles are. I mean, we can't be stupid about it either at the same time. But this is getting good, and now we have to go to break again.
Okay, so let's talk about that when we come
Okay?
back.
When we come back, stay with us.
Okay.
It's a stronger sense of style.
We are back talking about babies Babies at any age, baby.
At any age.
At any age. But you know, as we left, we were talking about medical things that having to do with, you know, being smart about it and keeping ourselves healthy so that you don't go into it, you know, knowing that not every woman at your age maybe could have a baby.
No.
In the way that you did.
Or a healthy baby.
A healthy baby, yeah.
And I mean, I was, you know, like Ruth, we tried every fertility treatment known to man. We tried for 4 years, and not only is it extremely expensive if you don't have insurance, it's extremely emotionally
I was going to say
downturn
discouraging, you know?
and time-consuming.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes 3 days a week, you know, 3 hours a day, driving to the doctor, sitting for
Right.
an hour, waiting for the procedure, driving
Right.
home. It's not something you undertake easily, so
Was
don't
there ever
wait.
was there ever a time when it was you were just going to say no more?
Yeah, we actually
gonna-
stopped for maybe 6 or 7 months, and I thought, you know, if this is meant to happen, it'll happen. I would continue to work homeopathically and with a doctor of Oriental medicine, doing acupuncture and things like that. And then my husband said, you know, there's a couple more techniques, let's try again. And got
that
lucky.
happened.
Now, was there any time at one point when you knew you were carrying, well, twins, that made you were afraid or scared you?
The
or...
first night after we got the blood test results, they said, you know, you may be having triplets. Then I didn't sleep.
So twins
Then
was a
I didn't
relief.
sleep. How do you nurse triplets? I mean, how do you,
Yeah.
And then I used to think, gee, you know, the car is down there, the house is up here. I'll have to carry one down, go back up and get the other one, which is what I do.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, that logistical
All
stuff
of those
that you don't think
logistics.
of.
I just flew back and forth from New Jersey
Oh,
by
so
myself with the twins.
Oh, God.
And my husband kept saying, how are you going to do this? Well, I have very little imagination, so it was like, well, what are you worried about? You know,
That's
because
good.
I
You didn't
couldn't-
think too far
No, I
ahead. You just
In
But
a
it
way,
is,
that's good.
logistically.
Yeah, it is.
How about you, Ruth, when you got pregnant? Is there any moment that made you, my sister-in-law, for one thing, as soon as she got pregnant, she said, well, now, there's no going back, and
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, yeah, when my husband told me that I was pregnant, I didn't believe him. I thought he was just amusing
Your
me.
husband had to tell you that?
Yeah, I was so disgusted. I was so disappointed the last 2 times that it didn't happen. I told him to go and get the results
Oh, okay.
oh, right.
at the clinic for me.
Right.
You know, I didn't want to hear it, so I stayed. We were visiting my mother-in-law in New England.
Oh, he must have been so thrilled.
And he said, I'll go get it. He says, because if you get hysterical, you're going to spoil Christmas and everything. So I waited at the hotel, and he called on the phone. He said, are you sitting down? I said, yeah, I'm sitting down. He says, well, you're pregnant. I said, you're lying, you're lying. You're just saying that so I won't be upset. He said, no, you're really pregnant. I said, I am pregnant.
Wow.
But it was scary, especially. We didn't know it was twins at that
Yeah.
point. And they, you know, they put 5 eggs in there. And I, too, had 3 at one point. And on the ultrasound, I even still have it on a film where there's the imprint of the 3rd one that was there that just kind of self-aborted.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Kate, you were talking about, you know, Rosie said, don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Were you?
Yes.
Did it happen to you too?
Terrified.
afraid.
Like the moment,
Terrified.
the moment they put that baby in your arms.
Something happens, but it was still terrified. I mean, I didn't want to drop him, crush him, hurt him. Now he's there. It was, you know, it's an enormous commitment too,
Yes, it
especially
is.
since I'm single
And
now.
you are a single mom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, you know, I hope someday that there'll be a man around to, you know, but if there's not, it's just still all me, and I'm totally committed. But I got scared. Sometimes I do wake up in the middle of the night and go, "Oh my God," you know. But it's
Well, you have lived through so much. I mean, you battled breast cancer. How long ago was that?
about 10 years ago. I'm one of the lucky ones who, with the mammogram, early detection, you know, is the key to the cure. And with early detection, you know, there's a 97% cure rate. So, you know,
Marilyn and I had a buddy mammogram.
oh yeah,
So we did it on our
we
show. We went
recommend that.
together.
We just go together.
Take a friend.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I
that's
mean, you know, if you have to take an afternoon off to do it, you might as well go with a friend,
just
have a little
chat.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, Marilyn.
You meant you shared the X-ray.
No, there wasn't room for both of us in there. We're not that close. But this one insisted on wearing her shoulder pads in her hospital gown.
I just don't look good without shoulder pads.
Okay, so we're a little more shallow than you thought. You know, this has been so good. I wish it didn't have to end. You guys are fabulous, and good luck to all of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are they staying with us? ending.
No, we got about a minute. The card said one more minute before we bail.
Yeah. Now they're going still with it. Oh, good. We get to keep chatting.
Oh, good. All right.
Just chat right along.
Okay, so what do you want to talk about?
We all just shut down now, didn't we? What? No, we're
Now they're waving. Okay, we're going to a commercial. We'll come back.
Motherhood at any age. It's the sign of the times. Women are waiting till later in life to have kids. I know that I had my youngest when I was 38, and the waiting room in the doctor's office, I was the youngest one in the doctor's office. Let me just put it that way. So it's very, very common. It's not like the old days when they had babies in their late teens. Don't do that. It's not good. No. I'm talking to anybody who knows my son. Okay.
Well, we're back with Kate, Ruth, and Adrienne. They all planned their babies. Our next guest didn't think that she could get pregnant. Well, imagine her surprise when the home pregnancy test was positive. Please welcome Julina Lind.
Julina, take us through, let's just start when you missed your first period. What was going on?
Okay, so I was 45. I missed my first period. I thought, it's no big deal, it happens. I missed my second period. I'm thinking, I'm going into menopause. I'm perimenopausal. My friend who's the menopause expert was in Ethiopia. So
a lot of help she was.
And that's the person I needed. So
Yeah.
she was no help. I had to wait till she came back. She wasn't coming back for a while. I missed my third period. My husband says, you know, Angelina, I think you might be pregnant. I say, it's not possible. Because actually I'd had a pretty bad case of pelvic inflammatory disease in the mid-70s.
And were childless up until this moment.
And was childless
so you were
and had been
convinced.
practicing the same kind of birth control for, you know, lots of years. I was 45.
Oh, well, was it the same time I used? I just yelled, get off, I'm ovulating.
Something like that, but it was a little extra stuff, doesn't it?
Okay.
So finally, after the third time, he said, you know, we better go buy one of those little home pregnancy kits. I say, no. Yeah. So he went out on Friday night and bought it. I really didn't want to do it on Friday or Saturday or Sunday. And Monday morning before we went to work, I did this little test, and it was one of those where if it was white, it was, you're not pregnant. If it turned blue, you were pregnant. So I did the little thing. I'm like, what is this color? I say, honey, come in here. This looks white to you, doesn't it? He goes, no, that's blue.
Oh, so the eye of the beholder,
The eye of the beholder. So I called my managed care physician practice and asked for an appointment.
We
and
are
they said,
in the 90s now, aren't we?
We are in the 90s. And this was like in November. And they said, okay, you can have an appointment in January. And I went, January? Are you kidding? And so they had this reaction like, what are you worried about? I said, I'm 45 and I'm pregnant, maybe. and I thought, like Ruth did, that I had these tired old eggs, and I was really scared.
Yeah.
And it wasn't part of my plan to be
Oh,
pregnant.
so you were more frightened that if you were pregnant, would the baby be healthy? Is that what you're saying?
And what was going to happen to my life? I mean,
Well, that, yeah.
But you wanted a baby.
and it wasn't part of my plan.
But once you found out
Once
that
I
you were
found out,
pregnant, how did you change your way of thinking? That this wasn't part of the plan.
Made a new plan.
I made a new plan, but it didn't happen right away. I mean,
So tell us what happened then. Okay, so you find out you're pregnant.
so I find out I'm pregnant.
Did you cry?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I cried,
But not with joy.
not with joy. And because I was scared. I didn't know what it would be like. It wasn't
Scared
wasn't
seems to be a
something you had
common
wanted.
reaction.
It wasn't something. Yeah, it wasn't in my vision.
Did you think that you could have kids before this at all?
I thought that I wouldn't be pregnant, and that was fine. I mean, as I said, it had never really been part of my plan. My plan had been to have a career, and I was happy with my career. I was happy with what I did. I'm actually a nurse, so the other thing that was sort of befuddling to my friends was she didn't know she was pregnant.
You didn't know, right?
Don't you know how this happens?
Yeah. So then,
So-
okay, so you find out and you have to wrestle with it a little, and then what happened?
And then, and then we said, well, this is going to be great. I felt sort of, I think what you said, you know, if it was spiritual or karma or religious or whatever, that this was something that was supposed to be. It had never happened before, and it was really something that was meant to be, and that I couldn't mess around with that, whatever that was,
Yes.
that karma.
So how was the pregnancy?
The pregnancy was fine. It was great. I had to have a C-section at the end, and we actually scheduled the C-section around when I didn't have a meeting and my husband didn't have a meeting, and so I worked and went to step aerobics class until 2 days before my son was born.
So you were very healthy.
I'd been taking care of myself, I thought.
And how old is he?
Oh, so he's 4.
There he is. He's 4 now.
Oh, look at. Okay, so speaking of that little picture.
Yeah.
So, was your birth all right?
Yes, it was fine. I will just say this one thing about older moms. When I had this scheduled C-section, and so when I was in the operating room and, you're kind of all laid out, the obstetrician came in and he said, well, Jelena, this is going to be a record. And, there's all these people around in the operating room. I said, what is that? And he said, you'll be the oldest patient I ever delivered.
Oh, how nice of him
It was
to do
very
that.
charming.
My doctor said to me, well, it's good that there's 2 of them because if you die...
Oh, the other one could take care of it.
Thank you.
Just a little bit of insensitivity, perhaps, in the medical profession.
Thank you.
Okay, stay with us. We're going to talk more with Jelena.
Jelena's
when
going
we
to tell
come
us
back.
more interesting things. Sad.
Talking about moms at any age, it's the way of the future. Joining us now is fertility specialist Dr. Mark Surrey. Hi, Mark.
Hi, how are you?
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
What do you think about what we're talking about here today?
I think it's terrific, and I think these ladies all have varied and interesting and somewhat depictive and accurate stories.
Can we draw a line at ages? Is the medical profession drawing a line at a specific age, or are we saying it depends on the individual case of every woman?
It clearly depends upon the individual. I didn't hear the intro that you had to this segment, but there are lots of gentlemen who are in their 50s and 60s who have
Yes,
babies.
we did
so
mention
what's
that.
Oh, good.
Yes,
Well,
we did.
there you go.
We were pretty fervent about that, actually.
Well, that's the way it should be. I mean, there shouldn't be a differentiation.
Well, I don't think, socially there should be a differentiation, but clearly, I mean, when you talk about, women and their
Right.
body and their health and things like that, like we heard that the woman who had the baby at 63 had lied and, forged
Yes.
documents. Well, why does a fertility clinic have a cutting off point?
Well, it's an ethical kind of a question, probably more than a physiologic one, in so much as that any lady, I think, in their 40s and 50s, regardless of whether they're doing a procedure like egg donation or a procedure like an in vitro or even trying to conceive naturally, owes it to themselves and to their prospective child to be in good health and to have physical examinations to check their cardiovascular system, their renal system, and to make sure that they're in good physical condition to have a pregnancy before doing so. So this is the type of screening that most clinics and offices would want a patient to do prior to attempting a
Now,
conception.
if a woman was over 40, I have a good friend who's struggling with this, and and she is over 40, what advice would you give someone who they were infertile at this point?
Well, I think the first thing is to become knowledgeable about your own system and your own fertility, and by consulting either with a health professional or even doing some reading. Secondly, I think would be, as was mentioned here, I think to be aggressive about your treatments and be directive as opposed to being a passive observer. I think.
What's directive? What do you mean specifically?
Well, I think that there are lots of clinics, lots of medical personnel who don't recognize, I think, what you brought up, the fact that one has to be aggressive about things because you don't have a lot of time necessarily.
right.
Yes.
So were you both
Yeah.
very aggressive
Yes,
with
and
it?
I would say also talk to other women, because if I knew then what I knew now, I would have started with different techniques. I started with one medication because it seemed less invasive to me. I wasn't having to inoculate myself. And I thought, well, I'm not really. I learned later that that medication had a much more I had a much more difficult time with it emotionally. It worked directly on the lower brain rather than just on the ovaries. If I had known, I would have gone right for the shots and saved my husband and my son a lot of grief.
Do you concur?
Absolutely. There are lots of, let us say, less aggressive and easier treatments, but these usually amount to things that are, first of all, not natural. They're synthetic medications that I think you're alluding to, that you probably took first, that actually compete with for binding sites for estrogen hormones in your brain. And these are fertility pills that a lot of general doctors or general OBGYNs will give to their patients for sometimes too long a period of time.
So you say
That's
see a
the other thing
specialist.
I would say, see a specialist.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, a lot of people just go to their OBGYN, don't they?
Yes. And this is something I think that is...
Wasting time.
Well, it could be. It depends on the individual. But again, for ladies, I think in their 40s, I think that perhaps a quicker route to a specialist is probably the better choice.
Now tell us about the embryo biopsy. I read about that last night in the background, and I had never heard of this.
Well, it's a procedure that we've started that involves actually taking an embryo after it's been produced in a laboratory and taking a cell from the embryo and testing it for its genetic content of the embryo.
Even before...
Before reimplanting it, before transferring the embryo. And right now, there are a limited number of genetically transmissible diseases that can be tested for in this manner. But I think that we're very close technically now to being able to do a lot of different testing in this manner. And this will open up a lot of potential, I think, for the medical profession as well as for the patients, most particularly in regard to knowing beforehand about the potential genetic well-being of the embryo.
You know, Doctor, we've really talked a lot about what's in our heart about having babies and women having babies at an older age, and you seem to be encouraging them because you're helping them. What do you say to people who are trying? Because, you know, you must have seen a lot of wonderful things happen in your practice.
And you certainly would never say to a woman in the delivery room that...
Hey, Grandma! You're about the oldest thing I ever operated on. What's that? No, so what do you
should
think?
be comforted to know you're about average in our practice.
You chose the wrong practice.
Well, you know. I think it depends greatly on the individual, obviously. And if you're alluding to the specifics of older ladies who are trying to conceive, I think that they have to make an informed decision, firstly, about whether to use their own eggs or whether to use donor eggs if they're still making eggs. And, you know, this decision has to be made with the help of a specialist, and it has to be based upon certain objective evidence that's going to be different for every individual. You know, you can't generalize and you say that every lady who is 43 has to do this or that or the other thing. You know, it's so determined by one's individual characteristics that I would encourage anybody before making that decision to make sure that they make it with an educated type of template. You know.
Okay. Thank you.
Stay with us, we'll be back.
Questions and answers.
That's right, you guys got questions, don't you?
Yeah.
We're going to take them.
Fertility specialist, Dr. Mark Surrey. And I'm here in the audience with questions, but I want to first start off, Kate, I hear that you have a four-legged helper.
Yes, I do.
Talk a little bit about that four-legged helper.
All right. Oh, you want me to tell you about it? I have a German Shepherd named Bailey that's been with me for a long time. I would tell you how old she is, but I lie about her age, so it wouldn't help me. But before Taylor was born, when I had his nursery set up, we would go, I had my glider chair in there, and we'd go sit in there, and Bailey found her place, and you know, so that she would accept the baby. And she is like Nana in Peter Pan. He cries in the night, she goes woof, woof, and it's just
sweet.
incredible. The first 6 months, every time I said Taylor, I'd say Bailey too.
What a good mommy you are. Okay. We have a question here.
Yeah. Hi, I'm 6 months pregnant, and this is a question for Adrienne. What do you think about stay-at-home moms as opposed to working?
I think if you have the opportunity to stay home and you don't have to work to put bread on the table, it's a wonderful,
You'll
wonderful
want to.
thing.
Now, opportunity being the operative word, huh?
Yeah.
I have a two-part question. Of you that work, and do you work, and then what do you do for childcare when you're working?
Hey, anybody here
Well,
busy
Taylor's
working?
gone on location with me since he was 2 weeks old. We take somebody, you know, who travels with us. I have a helper. And now that he's not in school, he goes everywhere. But I don't, you know, that's a big question.
It's a big
I don't know what's going to happen.
We can,
You
we can
guys
take
ought to
our
answer
children
that.
sometimes. I have someone who works for me from 9 until 6. And yesterday morning, I had a 9 o'clock job, and at 8:30, she was stuck in traffic. And I was, you know, I said to my 13-year-old, brush your teeth and get your clothes on, because you're going to have to go with me to sit in the lobby while I do this job, you know.
I love
How do
putting
you
the older
do?
ones
How
to
do you
work.
do jobs while you've got a baby on each breast?
Gently.
Fortunately, I'm just using my voice.
I actually went back to work when my son was 3 months old. And I do think that, in response to your question, that for me, if I could have stayed at home for another 9 months, if I could have stayed at home for a year, that would have been really good. But I also felt that, as I said, to me, work was really an important thing. And I knew that at some point in time, I really wanted to be back working as well as taking care of my son. And so we found a way for one person to be with him at home. And
I've got to say, too, that I've really, since Taylor was born, I've mostly stayed at home with them. I don't know how much longer I'll be able to do
And
that.
it's interesting because I think depending on where you are in the cycle of motherhood, at times you feel like, oh, I got to get out and work.
Yeah.
And then you work and then you go, oh, I need to be back home. And so you make it work, however, you know, wherever you are in your guilt process.
Yeah, right.
My question is, what do you ladies find the hard part of being a mom in this time of your life?
At this time in my life, the hardest part is childcare, because the world is so different than it was when I was a kid, or I have children that are 32 and 31 years old. And, you know, you lived in a neighborhood, you sent your kids outside to play. Well, you can't do that anymore. It's just too dangerous, and you have to be very careful about who you choose to care for your babies, your children, and picking schools, and that's the hardest thing to me.
And I think this whole notion about play dates. My son is 4 years old now, so
Oh, I
this
say
is
we all rise up against the play dates.
play dates drive me crazy.
Just drop by.
You know, it is.
Yeah.
It is. It's a
Oh,
tough
I hate
thing.
that too.
You got to make an appointment to play, you know.
Just drop
I
by.
know, just come on by.
I had a question. How do you make the determination whether to use your own eggs or when you use donor eggs?
That's a very good question, and it's usually made based upon a couple of different facts. The first is a hormone level that is taken on the second or third day of a menstrual cycle called FSH, or follicle stimulating hormone level. And that seems to be predictive if the eggs that you make are going to be able to be compatible with causing a pregnancy. There's a number that sort of goes up and down depending upon the phase of the moon, but it is around 15 or 16. And if your level is significantly higher than that, then chances are you'd be better off using donor eggs.
Can I ask you a question? At what point do you recommend that a woman stop doing the in vitro and consider adoption?
Again, it's a very individual kind of a situation, but with in vitro, if you're alluding to in vitro utilizing the woman's own eggs, then the next step would be donor eggs, because donor eggs work very, very well, very frequently, and if the proper donor is selected, as long as the recipient has a healthy, normal uterus, the success rates are as high as 50% a cycle now, which is about as good as you can get for human fertility.
So there's all different ways to get there now.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we love those babies. We'll be right back.
Hook up with us on our website at www.cnmshow.com.
Babies at any age Wasn't this a fun show?
It was a great show.
Okay,
And
before we
interesting.
go, we want to hear what you're doing, Adrienne.
I'm doing a real short-term musical that I could do and have my babies at the Long Beach Center Theater from June 27th to July 20th.
You won't be
I'll down there
finished nursing.
singing.
You're going to run back.
That's right.
Thank you, guys. This has really been fun.
Thank you.
You know what? I'm going to miss watching you on television.
Thank
you guys
you.
are really
Accommodations provided by Hollywood's historic landmark, the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, home to the stars for over 3 generations. Elegant accommodations, exceptional service on Hollywood's Walk of Fame.
This is Joan London.
And Charles Gibson. Tomorrow, Isabella Rossellini. And from Batman and Robin, Uma Thurman.
Plus America's zookeeper, Jack Hanna, on tomorrow's Good Morning America.